Today on the Expect Miracles podcast, we have a very special guest. I'm very excited to learn more about Elizabeth Tripp. Elizabeth is a New York City-based lifestyle design coach, intuitive medium, and spiritual teacher. Elizabeth, how are you today?
I'm wonderful, Kevin. Thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. And I really just want to shout you out for seeing the value in my work and sharing it with your audience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. Everything you do, I'm a huge fan of. Lifestyle coaching, and even you said you kind of have a gift of just seeing the blockages in people's lives that you can really uncover. And it all just sounds fascinating. And thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
You're welcome. That's exactly right. I have very special talents and I can't wait to share them with your audience.
So Elizabeth, where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from upstate New York in a very small town. It's called Del Mar. And I grew up there for nearly 18 years and then headed a little bit west to a small town again called Oneonta for college. And then made my way down to the city 11 years ago.
Complete lifestyle change there from upstate New York to the big city. How was that for you?
It was definitely a unique transition from being a small town girl to the big city, big lights. But, you know, I was always attracted to New York for its opportunity and the diversity. Mm-hmm. And it's led for some really beautiful connections and paved a pathway for a successful business.
Absolutely. Now, Elizabeth, you are an intuitive medium and spiritual teacher. Is that something you found like at a very young age where you kind of discovered these talents, or was it something you found later in life?
Really great question. People ask me that often. And really, Kevin, being an intuitive medium has been something that I've been gifted with my entire life. When I was about 4 years old, I was experiencing the world quite differently than everybody else. And I can remember laying in my childhood bed and my heart was pounding. It was nighttime. I was watching the images and scenes around me, and I was terrified. I didn't know what I was looking at. And when the sun would slightly come up and the light would crack through, I would run down to my mom's room and I'd say, Mom, you know, there were monsters in my room last night. And interestingly, my parents didn't quite have the tools to be able to handle, my gifts and the abilities that I had, because these images and these shadows were actually ghosts. And when I went to explain that, my parents quite simply, like most normal parents, said,
Right.
No, honey, that's not true. You're just imagining it.
Yeah.
But every night when I would go to bed, the lights would come down, they would come out and they would want to communicate with me. And
was it scared? Like, were you scared, or was it like a joyful experience for you?
Yeah, well, being so young, I was definitely scared. I didn't know how to process or understand what was happening around me. And when I was trying to communicate what was really occurring, it was sort of, I received a message that, it's not true, it's not happening. But yet, even in daylight, as I started to grow older, I would see apparitions and past loved ones just standing in a room or behind my mom or dad.
Wow.
Yeah, and I would, claim, hey, Mom, can you see that? Or, hey, Dad, do you see that person over there? And again, it was just not in their ability to be able to support me in that way. And Kevin, most people, when you talk in this way, get scared themselves. They don't really understand it. So,
well, I'm a huge fan of what you do. So I had a patient come to me, and he came to the chiropractic office. I adjusted him. He had a really great response to it. And I said, "How did you find me?" And he said, "I went to a medium and she told me to come to you. And I was like, what? That's kind of strange. What do you mean? And she said, pay attention to the blue and white signs everywhere. And I was like, I don't think I have any blue or white signs in the office. And then they took me to this, to my resting room, and there's blue and white signs everywhere. And so I wanted to find out more about this woman. So I actually started going to her myself, and it was a heavy, amazing experience. Like, she was able to channel my father, which,
Mm,
I mean, going into it, I was kind of just like, I would say not a true believer yet, but
yeah.
I went in there with an open mind, and she was telling me things only my dad knew and only my dad told me. And it was a very, it's like when you can make that connection again, because my dad passed away when I was 16. When you can
Mm.
make that connection again, it was very profound. And so I'm a huge believer and fan of everything you guys do, because in a way it helped me out a lot with some questions I had that I was able to reconnect. And without that, there might have just been questions I would have had my entire life.
So amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And really, that ties in so perfectly with the work that I do.
Hmm.
So, from a real soul perspective, and I use the word soul because I believe that there is this incredible light and energy within our bodies that are connected to something much bigger than ourselves. And we're here on this earth journey in this time space experience to really learn and grow.
Hmm.
And when things like a death or a trauma or a tragedy happen in our lives, there this incredible opportunity to really discover something about ourselves comes to light. But if we get stuck in the emotion, if we get stuck in the pain, we sometimes don't always have that experience where we can really grow past what has happened. And we'll carry heavy energy with us, and we'll carry beliefs that often limit us. So when clients really come to see me, or when I work with people, I am able to tune into these spirit guides and past loved ones to guide them back to these challenging experiences they've had throughout their life, and really tap into this information that spirit gives me so that I can give them a permanent solution. And I can imagine, Kevin, when you heard from your dad on the other side,
Hmm.
it gave you like a sense of peace and
Oh,
completion.
absolutely. It was one of the most amazing feelings I ever experienced, really. It was
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And without that peace and completion, I imagine you probably would have lived life feeling that there was maybe a sense of pain or a hole in part of yourself without really being able to have that connection.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and that's the really incredible piece to the work, is because people around the world can then really get to the source of what's
Hmm.
paining them, because spirit is always watching us, and they're really looking out in a sense for our highest good.
They're looking out for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and people will ask me, they'll say, well, how come we have to go through challenge to, to learn? It seems so counterintuitive. Why can't spirit just guide us to the joyful things?
Mm.
And I usually like to help people open up to the idea of, if things were always like rainbows and butterflies, like a utopia,
Yeah.
we're all walking around with white robes and halos,
Yeah. Not a lot of growth happening there.
there's not a lot of growth. And I'm sure, Kevin, as you can attest, probably losing your dad was a tremendous catalyst for transformation for you, was it not?
Absolutely. One of the worst things, one of the best things that ever happened to me, just because your life completely changes from that, especially at a young age. And you got to figure life out for yourself. And it was kind of very fortunate because I had to start doing everything. If I wanted it to happen, I would have to make it happen myself. And I learned that at a very young age, and it helped get me ready for the world. Whereas if obviously I would have wanted my dad to stay here for as long as possible, but as a natural parental instinct. You want what's best for your child, and maybe you do as much as you can for them. And you see a lot of people that don't face much adversity until they're like 40 or 50, and they kind of panic. They don't know what to do. And it was almost a blessing to have that adversity at such a young age.
Yeah, and that's exactly true. And what I would like to also offer people is, these kinds of experiences are something that's a part of the journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as we kind of lean into ourself as not just a human, right, but as a spiritual being, we can see that the veil between the other side is very thin.
Mm-hmm.
And when we give ourselves the space and the opportunity to open our hearts and our mind to the possibility, especially now, Kevin, because it's a really
More than
tumultuous
ever,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, for a lot of people, that there are answers that can come within us. There is actually a tremendous amount of wisdom within our own self because, like I said, in my practice, I believe that there is a soul within our bodies, and that soul is eternal and incredibly powerful and incredibly strong and bright. And when we are able to align and connect with that energy, we can access wisdom and information towards the path we should be walking on today in our journey. And you get this cool information from spirit, and you can then use this as sort of a guidance on
Mm-hmm.
your path forward. How many people
Absolutely.
need a little bit of help right now?
Everybody. Elizabeth, can you go into briefly what is a spirit guide? Does everybody have one? And how does that work? Because that's a term that keeps kind of coming up in this conversation.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, what is a spirit guide? Well, before you came down to earth, okay, think about it this way. You were in what is called a soul school, okay? Just like when you go to school like a little kid, you up in the ethereal, right, in the other side, the other dimension, maybe some people call it heaven, maybe some people call it the universe, or, up in the clouds. You're really in a school-like form or place, and you're learning with other souls, and you're designing what you want to learn next on your journey forward. And particularly, a lot of souls are learning how to go back into their next life at Earth, what they want to accomplish, what they want to achieve. And just like when we go to school in elementary school and middle school and high school, we have teachers that stand up and give us presentations and quizzes and homework. Well, in this spirit school, we have teachers as well, and they're called guides. There's different levels. There can be angel guides and master guides and ascended guides. But we essentially have a whole team of them that we make an agreement and a contract with to come and be a support for us on Earth. The thing is, though, that when we come to Earth, we don't remember these things
Mm-hmm.
because we've got to actually learn and grow through the process of our experience here. And so the guides will be journeying with us. So everybody has them, and they'll have more than sometimes one or two, and possibly three or four. It really depends on your stage or your journey. And they'll walk with us, and they'll do like really interesting things. Like, for instance, one time in New York, I was standing on a street corner, and suddenly I was thrown backwards. I mean, literally,
Really?
it was just a whoosh, and I was thrown backwards. And within a split second, there was a biker that actually just whizzed by my
Wow.
face. If I had stayed in the spot where I was standing, that biker definitely would have crashed into me. And it was in that split second, I was totally catapulted backwards, that I realized, oh my gosh, my spirit guide just totally pushed me out of the way. it's things like that that they'll do, as well as drop in information like what your client did when they said,
Yeah.
well, I'm supposed to follow the blue and white signs. They'll give you things that might not seem rational,
Right.
but make sense later on. So
Absolutely.
was that a good description?
Absolutely. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so the practice that you're in, I don't see anybody that that wouldn't need what you do, because it's I love the name of it, live life by your design.
Yeah.
Mostly all of us down here are trying to design the lives we want, and sometimes we're conscious of it. Other times, people get caught in some things, and it completely goes the other way. And how do you, what is your practice like? How does it start? And how do people really grasp what they want to go for in life?
Yeah. So I believe that we're on this journey. We're in this human experience to be our brilliant self. That means that as we come back to the premise in which I spoke about, we want to align with the beautiful bright light within our in ourselves today. And there's something that each of us are here to fulfill. So we've all come to this journey to accomplish something. And when we step into my work, when we, want to design a life that we love, we want to live life by your design, you generally have come to a place in your life where you don't feel like you're fulfilled, like you're missing something,
Yeah.
that something's out of your alignment or not, you're not in touch with. And you're meant to do something big. You're meant to make an impact on the world, but you've been hitting all these roadblocks and you've been, frustrated by all these challenges. So essentially, when you come to see me, what I'm really helping you do is to clear out all the noise that you've been inside of so that you can really get to the source of what's been limiting you from living an existence and a lifestyle that really brings you joy.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Kevin, life isn't about hard work. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be really having to surrender to the opinions and beliefs of others. So when people step into this program, Live Life by Your Design, they're really ready to clear again out that chatter, connect to the brilliance within themselves, this soul energy that has this blueprint. Okay. Your soul inside you has a blueprint for your life in joy, for your life of true fulfillment. We can't access that blueprint if your mind is all cluttered. It
Mm-hmm.
just isn't possible. So once we declutter and get to the source of the limitations and start to help you break through, there's a whole sense of peace and calm that many of my clients experience. And they feel empowered and they start to align with more clearer truths, values. I am powerful. I am capable. I am strong. I can do what I love. And we start to uncover the natural gifts that they have. And as we do that, we start to help them see, well, hey, you can do what you love and love what you do and really live by your own design. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to work 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to believe the opinions and take the reactions of others around you and hold them above who you really are. You can make a big splash on the world by being yourself. So in this incredible journey, clients go through a couple of mastery level phases with me to ultimately begin to shine a bright light on the world in which they live and really feel free to be themselves and express themselves in a way where they're dancing in life, where they're joyful about their life experiences rather than stuck in so much suffering.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's live life by your design.
Now, Elizabeth, what can you offer your clients that other life coaches can't? Because I feel like a lot of life coaches, that's their goal, is to declutter and get the person on track and live the life they want. But I think you're bringing a little bit more to the table. And what do you think that is?
Yeah, so let me give you an example. I want to share a client case study, a real brief one. So I work with tons of people, men, women, visionaries, entrepreneurs, creatives. And I had a client come to me a few years ago, and she was just in so much distress, really full of anxiety. There was a lot of worry, there was a lot of self doubt. And over a very short period of time, I was able to really tap into her soul's uh, path
Mm,
and use her guides as a source of information for me to
mm,
help her get to the bottom of why she was in so much anxiety. And I was able to guide her to an experience where she actually watched her grandmother pass. And while she was watching her pass at the hospital, she turned to her mom and said, "What's going on?" And her mom, instead of sharing, "Hey, grandma's moving to another place to live eternally," the mom wasn't able to actually talk about it with her. And she remembers feeling her mom just standing in silence with so much tears. And we talked about how this totally changed her perspective of herself and her circumstance. That she then walked out of that room at the age of 8 feeling incredibly afraid that at any moment something could happen to her or someone in her family. So for 35 years, she lived with this anxiety. Anxiety is really fear. And we got to the root of that fear, that it had been just the experience of watching her grandma pass and not having the support that she would have ideally wanted to understand or process the situation. I wouldn't have been able to get to that place with her without the use of the guides, because they brought me right in there. And when I asked, "Did your grandmother pass and was that
mm,
traumatic for you?" She was like, "How did you know that?" And I said, "Well, you've come to me because I have very special gifts."
mm-hmm,
So, to make this story really short and succinct, essentially, when we got to the root of that, and I held space for her to process, clear it out, see the simplicity of how the experience unfolded, but yet how big it felt for herself as a child, she could let it go. And within a year later, she stopped taking Prozac, Xanax, all these medications she had been prescribed, and actually started to live with more calm and peace. And from that was able to transition from a job that she hated, a company that wasn't actually supporting her, and step into entrepreneurship and start leading a life she loves while having clarity and room to see a path forward without worrying all the time.
mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say would be the value of coming to work with me, the personalized experience of being able to know you can get answers and a permanent solution to your life struggles. Because of this incredible ability that I have, that's really what makes me different from any other life coach.
Love that. Elizabeth, is there a way for people that don't have that gift you were describing to access their own guides? Is there something that that we could do just to access our own guides, just to channel ourselves in the right direction?
I love it. I love your questions. You must be spiritually curious yourself
I'm
as
very
a,
curious. Yeah, I like I said, I truly am fascinated with all this because I know it's very real. I wouldn't have believed it so profoundly if
yeah.
it didn't happen to me, and I
Yeah.
know it's very real. So I'm really jiving with everything you're saying here.
Yeah, that's so great. So I use the term spiritual practice, and I want everybody to just sort of lean into this term, because sometimes when we use the word spiritual, people get a little apprehensive or confused. So this isn't about following a religion or a philosophy, but really what a spiritual practice is anything you do to connect with your authentic higher self, your real inner being, or sometimes people call intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to find activities or practices that allow for us to really quiet within. Because, Kevin, if we don't have that calm and quiet within ourselves, we are really inside of a future conversation or a past conversation rather than actually present to the moment. And so when we're connected to ourselves in our body, in our mind, in the moment, that's when we can actually align with our soul and bring in the guidance of our spirit team. Now, your spirit team can be with you at any point, any time, but if you want to hear them, you have to have the quiet and calm. That's why I'm talking about this,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can really receive their messages with clarity. It's not to say that you can't say, hey, okay, after listening to this podcast, I'm going to invite my guides to come in and show me
Yeah.
a sign.
Yeah.
But you have to have the quiet. So if you're running around and there's all this noise in your mind, you're looking for the sign, you'll likely miss it.
Mm-hmm.
So having that spiritual practice, a way of finding a way to connect with yourself, a meditation per se, that's anything you do to connect with your higher self, is so essential to developing a long-lasting partnership with spirit, because everybody has a team that's here to help them, especially now.
Absolutely. Elizabeth, how does it work with sessions with you? Like, what is, I mean, it's probably different for everybody, but how long is a session? How many sessions do you recommend? And yeah.
I love that question. Well, when coming to work with me, you obviously know we're going to do some really profound work. But guess what? I'm going to make it easy. So it doesn't have to be tremendously hard. It doesn't have to be heavy. It actually can be a really incredible experience where you walk out of working with me and you're like, whoa, I can't believe I was thinking, saying, doing all of this for so long. And now I have a whole new way of seeing and being with myself. So in order for me to do that, I need some time with you. You know, I need to get to know you. So sessions are 2 hours at length.
Mm-hmm.
And what I recommend is that clients really start with coming for a series of 3 to 7 up to 14 sessions to start. And that really depends on what you're wanting to accomplish. Most of the time, when people come to see me for the first time, they're in a level of overwhelm or a sense of disempowerment that I just need a handful of sessions to clear that out and get them
Absolutely.
really present. So once we do that, then we can kind of take it, sort of the bull by the horn and say, what are you really ready to accomplish? So I have an empowered soul program that starts with these series. So the rising is 3 sessions, the awakening is 7, and transcendence is 14. And after that last session or the last program, that's where I invite clients who exclusively want to design their life into my exclusive program, Living Life by Design.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And do you on your bio it says that you're also Reiki certified?
Mhm.
Do you practice Reiki as well?
So Reiki is actually something that I've been able to do for, my entire life. I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
But that specific technique, I integrate energy work into my practice. So when clients do come to see me, they will notice that they'll be lifted from heavy energy.
Mm-hmm.
Their
Mm-hmm.
chakra systems will start to align. They'll feel healthier, brighter, more empowered. So I integrate elements of Reiki, but in a very innovative and unique approach. So it's not like anything else anybody's ever done before.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reiki is truly fascinating as well because most Reiki practitioners don't even put their hands on you. And then after the
Mhm.
session, you're just like, it does feel like the chakras are aligned. You feel lighter. You feel very
Yeah.
grateful. Just amazing experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you've done that before.
I do. Yeah. A couple of my cousins do it. And I've gotten a couple Reiki sessions. I absolutely love it.
Nice.
Huge
That's
fan of energy
awesome.
work.
So cool.
Yeah. And so Elizabeth, any other topics you would like to touch on?
Well, I think that, the biggest thing, especially right now, in the current sort of circumstances that we're moving through with everything that's been happening, being confronted by the coronavirus, by protests, by riots, I want people to really understand, really open their hearts to the notion that things happen for a reason and that things happen on purpose. And I know that can feel like a really confronting statement for people. But if we can just open our ears and our minds and our hearts to really this idea that there's something bigger that's orchestrating our lives, that when we as a human collective aren't playing in the band well, right, spirit will say, hey, let's get you guys back on track.
Absolutely.
And they'll give us these incredible challenges. I like to call them 2x4s.
It's right in the forehead, yeah.
Yeah, like think about it, Kevin. How many 2x4s have you gotten in the past, but like haven't always answered the call? So you needed a big smack in the face.
Everybody needed one, yeah.
Yeah, so we're getting this huge smack in the face to really wake us up to something that, again, I'm going to come back to the premise of my work, that our soul self, remember the part of us that's already whole, complete, healed. There's nothing broken about anyone, in my opinion. I look at every single person and see a soul. Imagine if people could look in the mirror and at others and really see a soul, a human that's inside of them has an energy that's so magnificent, so beautiful, so incredible, so brilliant. The kinds of things that we could do on earth together and the transformation we could have. So if anyone out there is having a tremendously difficult time and is feeling completely overwhelmed in a sea of emotions, what's happening, you're in the middle of a huge soul lesson, a life lesson for yourself. And I really ask you to take a moment to ask yourself, how do you want your new normal? What would you like your life to be like? Because the opportunity is now. We've never been given more of a wake up than now to really start living a life that you love. So for those of you that are in these circumstances and listening to this, it's by no coincidence. You're meant to actually learn and grow from this experience. So don't wait. So that's what I would say.
I love that.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, where can people find you online, social media platforms, or if they just want to book a session with you?
Yeah, so I have a beautiful rebranded website. It's called elizabethtripp.com. And what I would like to invite people to do is take a life design quiz that I've especially set up for individuals who are ready to really explore designing a life that they love rather than one they want to walk away from. I know so many people are feeling like they want to walk away from their life circumstances right now. And I really offer you this opportunity when you head to my website to really start to self-examine what it is you want right now. So you can head over to elizabethtripp.com and take that quiz, as well as look at the different programs that I have and ways that I can best help you right now. And if you want to become a part of my tribe, I have a beautiful Facebook community. It's called Empowered Souls. We chat every day. We share what we're moving through. And we also have a beautiful group coaching program that we do every couple weeks with each other that I hold. And I post on Instagram quite frequently. It's Elizabeth M. Tripp on IG. And so you can become a part of the community there as well.
I love that. I love what you said before. Instead of walking away from a life you don't want, walk towards the one you do. And I think that's very powerful. And Elizabeth, at the end of every show, I like to ask all my guests, what is one piece of advice that has really resonated with you over the years that you would like to gift the audience? It could be absolutely anything.
Oh, wow. That is a beautiful question. A piece of advice that I would give everybody is that I understand that at times you can feel like there's something that is really incredibly broken or in need of fixing about you yourself. And I want you to know that deep within you, you are already fixed, you are already healed, and you are already a whole and powerful energy of light, full of so much love. And that once you recognize that and really begin to open your heart to accept that truth about yourself, your life and your circumstances will change incredibly. So don't lose hope that there's something within you today that is so big and that you have something really, really brilliant to share with the world, your family, and your community right now.
Beautiful. Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed this conversation. Yeah, thank you for sitting down and spending the time with us.
Kevin, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this. And again, I want to thank you so much for seeing the value in my work and sharing it with your community.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I would love to have you back on anytime. Thank you so much.
Thank you.